Hey guys, how's it going? So, I have seen Avengers Endgame 5 times already, and I'm recording this on April 28th, which is Sunday, apparently, and oh my god, first of all, I don't know how I'm going to cover this in one video, but I'm just going to try to hit the major points, especially when we get to spoilers. Of course, I'm sure the big question on all of your minds, and certainly the question I have seen the most and the most disappointment from, is where is my Avengers Endgame showcase? I've kind of trickled the information in at the end of a lot of videos I've done recently, and I've talked about it a little bit on Twitter and Instagram, but of course, the Avengers Endgame showcase did not go up for release. That was due to a lack of reference early on in this year, and also my own poor time management, and so I'm making those figures and all the minifigures for Avengers Endgame to celebrate the film and the culmination of the Marvel Cinematic Universe over this summer and the fall. So I hope you'll join me for those showcases as we build up to what I think will probably be one big video to have them all in one big shot. We'll see, but that's going to be pretty much the vast majority of the rest of 2019 for me, is celebrating Endgame. But yeah, I've seen the movie 5 times. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy making time for all that, first of all, and just really being able to sit on the movie now. I wound up going into a 10 o'clock showing like right after the original 6:30 that I had on Thursday, so I was in there for 6 hours, over 6 hours, and it was great. It was amazing. Now, for no spoilers, of course, Avengers Endgame is the grand finale to the Infinity Saga and the conclusion to the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe up until this point since 2008. And I've been waiting, and I think all of us have been waiting for this movie ever since the original announcement back in 2014, October 2014, when they announced Phase 3 and they announced Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2. Been waiting ever since that day, and to finally arrive here in the year 2019 and see the film after the true magic that was Avengers Infinity War, I've got to say it, for the most part, reached my expectations. I don't know that I could say it necessarily surpassed them, but it certainly reached them, and I absolutely love Avengers Endgame. It really is an incredible film. It's not a perfect film. I do have plenty of problems, but man, is it just amazing. It didn't need to be 3 hours long though, and that's one problem. I think there was definitely you know, great character development that came with the extra time that we got to spend with the Avengers for the most part, but there were definitely varying scenes that could have either been shaved off entirely or just substituted out and repurposed for something more meaningful. But as far as the cast goes, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, I mean, for a lot of them, this is arguably their greatest movie. Their greatest performances are delivered in Avengers Endgame, and I would say especially so for Robert Downey Jr. And Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner. I really, it's an incredible film. I don't know that I can go as far as to say masterpiece, because the third act is a masterpiece. The later half of the movie is incredible, and that's where, for me, all the magic really kicked in. And that's where the emotion and the stakes and the culmination of everything that has come before really came to fruition. And so I don't know that you would consider that a spoiler. I would hope not, or I would hope you at least maybe saw the movie and you're watching this. Either way, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has had a major impact on me, and I know I always come across as maybe overly dramatic, and honestly I couldn't care less, because if it wasn't for the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Star Wars The Clone Wars before it, I literally would be a different person today, and I think that's true for a lot of people. And either way, I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe has very clearly had a major impact on millions and millions of people all over the world over the last decade. That 1.2 billion that it just raked in, just smashing all records, I think proves how important the Marvel Cinematic Universe has really become for the world, and you know, just going beyond the genre. And I think that this movie is a really satisfying bookend. It's, for me, I wouldn't say I prefer Avengers Endgame over Avengers Infinity War, and that's just my personal opinion. I just think that Avengers Infinity War was structured better. Every scene was deliberate and meaningful and had a purpose, where I didn't necessarily feel the same way about Endgame for a lot of it, and again, I've seen it 5 times now, so I'm pretty firm in how I feel about the movie overall. But just in closing, for no spoilers here, just a massive congratulations goes out to everybody involved with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, everybody from Kevin Feige, of course, to Jon Favreau, to the Russo brothers, all of them. And Joss Whedon, the casting director for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, everyone and all the thousands of people that contributed to this, and everyone from every cast for every movie, just this, I think, has been an incredible experience, and the original Star Wars trilogy, but for our generation, in the sense that there never will be anything quite like this, exactly like this, ever again. You'll never have the Avengers assemble for the first successful superhero cinematic universe ever again, with A-list stars embodying the roles of Iron Man and Captain America. And this has just been a true privilege. And so Avengers Endgame, like I said, is a fantastic bookend to all of that. And so now there's too many spoilers to talk about, and this video I'm expecting is probably going to go on for at least 20 more minutes or so. I hope not. But I just want to hit the bullet points, because mostly when it comes to spoilers, a lot of what I have to say spoilers-wise has to do with my downsides for the movie. So if you have not seen Avengers Endgame, this is your spoiler warning to bail out. I'd love to have you back after you've seen the movie. So to begin with spoilers, listen, man, there were a few things that I immediately took issue with. I certainly wanted to see a bit more of the effect of the decimation. I wanted to see how it affected other planets. I wanted to see how the impact it had on the rest of the universe, what was really going on beyond Earth, and the smaller, more, I guess, personal moments that they showed us instead. The Joe Russo scene with him and the meeting with Cap and everything 5 years later after the time jump, didn't really do a lot for me in that way. And even the whole Vanish Monument, I just expected a little bit more from that, considering the impact that it had on the entire universe, trillions of people erased. And also, I wanted Tony Stark to work again. I wanted to see him work, and you do get at least about like a minute and a half of it, 30 seconds, when he's trying to fix up the Benatar and he's narrating over that for his recorded message to Pepper, and he's trying to fix the fuel cells because they were damaged during the battle on Titan. I wanted to see a bit more of that. I wanted to see Tony work one last time, and especially so after he's delivered back to Earth by Captain Marvel, and then 5 years later when they approach him after Scott Lang gets pulled from the quantum realm, not by his own abilities, but by a random rat pressing buttons. That was disappointing. Tony just comes up with time travel instantly. Like, it's nothing. His and humanity's greatest breakthrough, just in one evening, he just figures out time travel. And I was like, what? I expected more from that. And another thing, I just really want to get through these negatives because I want to, of course, discuss positives. Another thing was Thor. I have the unpopular opinion of actually really loving the first Thor movie and really appreciating all the character development we got from Thor: The Dark World. And I'm actually not the biggest fan of Thor Ragnarok. I thought that in that movie, Chris Hemsworth and Mark Ruffalo were just playing themselves and were no longer Thor or Bruce Banner for most of it. And I thought that was kind of a shame, and all the emotional weight that could have come from Hela, the sister they never knew, who had been exiled their whole lives, suddenly showing up, feeling betrayed. It was not really taken advantage of, and I thought that was a bit of a shame. And that's why, for me, when we got to Infinity War and Thor was really brought back and really reeled back in, and it was a return to form for Thor, in the sense that he readopts that Viking persona. Will you join me on my quest in Nidavellir? And he then, of course, going against what Taika Waititi did in Ragnarok, did need to go get an axe and a weapon to channel his powers through. So to then go back on all of that from Infinity War for Thor and for Thanos, which we'll get to, I thought was a shame. I was really looking forward to Thor feeling the weight of basically failing to save trillions of people in the known universe, what that would do to him after 5 years following the time jump that we knew was coming. I wanted more out of that. I just didn't want them to go that far with that. I didn't expect the belly, the flabby arms, and the drunkenness that lasted for too long. I would have been okay if Thor was a drunk and maybe was a little overweight, but that was, for me, taking it way too far and was just a pure deconstruction of his character and all of his development. It was just taking it too far. And getting to Avengers Endgame, personally, I wanted all the Avengers to be in their prime. You know, we've made it. We are here. We are at Avengers Endgame, the final film with the original Avengers, and I just didn't want heavy-set, drunken Thor the entire time, because it also detracted from the time heist sequence when he sees his mother again. How much more could we have gotten out of that scene if he was actually all there and taking things seriously? For me, I would have rather him have not been so heavy-set and maybe snap out of it once he realizes that they've figured out time travel and that there may be a way to reverse it, not prolonging it as long as they did. I mean, it was so bad. It lasted all the way up until Thanos eventually re-emerges from 2014, now at Avengers HQ. So that was weird. That bothered me a lot as a Thor fan. And before that, though, of course, we did have the death of Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. After all these movies, she sacrificed herself for the Soul Stone, and that was really crazy. I love the fake outs that came with that. Personally, I got spoiled for Avengers Endgame, so I knew what was coming, but it was still a very powerful scene that at first I was kind of bothered by, because I thought it was a little too much of a knockoff of Gamora's, but then the second and third time I saw Endgame, and every time that would follow, it was really a fantastic exit for her character. And Scarlett Johansson's best scene, I mean, that was by far Scarlett Johansson and Jeremy Renner's best scene, I think, in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. That was really, really well done. And of course, then when they pull all the Infinity Stones from the various points in time, that was a really fun series of sequences, especially the Battle of New York and seeing it from all those different perspectives and linking in the Winter Soldier stuff with that time period in 2012, you know, Alexander Pierce and the strike units, and Crossbones and all that stuff. That was all fantastic, and encountering, you know, Cap's, 2012 self, and of course also the Ancient One. That was amazing, linking her in and her entire sequence and explaining the rules of time travel for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I thought actually kind of contradicted what the Hulk said, in the sense that it really does kind of behave the same way as the movies. Because I mean, in what they reference, you know, when I think of time travel, I think of like Star Trek or The Flash. You can go back and change things, and you're on your main timeline, and then you have all these other timelines. You can go back and cherry pick things and change those timelines, and you can return to your timeline, but if the changes you made over here create branch realities that have now been affected by those changes, and that's pretty much how it does work in the movie. So I thought that was a little contradictory. Regardless, when they do obtain all the Infinity Stones and make it back, and the Hulk snaps his fingers, that was pretty great. That was fantastic. I wasn't expecting it to be the Hulk, honestly, even though that seemed very obvious. And yeah, so I loved all of that. I think that man, when you finally cut to the sequence where Thanos and all of his 2014 Thanos, finally arrives thanks to the help of now 2014 Nebula, who had infiltrated the team and traveled back in place of our Nebula. That was really, really crazy, man. I was really blown away by just how gorgeous the whole shot was of the sanctuary in the sky, and then everything that would follow in the final battle. The final battle for me was something of dreams and everything that I was hoping for. It was just visually everything that I always wanted to see from what I always imagined the ending battle would be against Thanos. Now, just to preface this, I want to get this out of the way so I can really just marvel, excuse the pun, over the final battle for the rest of this video. The biggest problem that I had, even on top of Thor in Avengers Endgame, was they took all of Infinity War and that entire movie and gave it to Thanos. He was the main character of Infinity War as he collected the Infinity Stones and confronted all of the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time. And he had the most screen time of 22 minutes. He was amazing. They made him into a person. They explained to you his values. They showed you that he had some honor. He admired the Avengers enough to not kill them because he had already had the stones and he knew they were no threat to him, and only went after those who did affect his plan in the form of Loki or Tony. And they really just took Thanos to a whole another place that I never expected and really made him into a living, breathing character. And that was completely lost with the beginning of Endgame, because I think this is, and I realize that not everyone's going to be agreeing with any of these opinions, and I know they're unpopular. I tend to have the unpopular opinions, but I really don't think that killing our Thanos, our main Thanos, in that opening sequence was the right call. Because all of that character development, all of those experiences from 2014 and onward into Infinity War, and all of his development as he obtained the Infinity Stones and everything that happened in the movie throughout his spiritual journey, just gone, died with him. I personally would have rather him have held on to the stones, the Avengers made attempts on his life, never succeeding because he's too powerful, and just maybe retreating until one day a chance would reveal itself to where they could attack Thanos and do this, and maybe Thanos would have, you know, Skrulls or just some kind of agents that were keeping an eye on the Avengers in the event that they do figure out a way to undo it, considering how brilliant the majority of them are, and he would know that. I just think that if we had our Thanos for the final battle, that would have been so much better. Because much like Thor, Thanos, for whatever reason now, experienced complete character regression. Just complete character regression and just completely retracting all of his development as a character. And I just don't agree with that for either him or Thor. After all these years building up, the last thing I would have wanted is for Thanos to not remember Infinity War, to not even know the Avengers have ever really met Tony Stark, or even know Scarlet Witch, or even, you know, have sacrificed Gamora or done any of it, and for all of that to be lost and that context to be completely removed from the character for the final finale battle, to me that was the wrong move. That was not. That I don't understand why that had to be. I'm sure there was a way to write something better than that. I personally don't know what it is, but there was, I'm sure, a way to keep our Thanos. As weak as he might have been, he could, if he still had the Infinity Stones and figured out what the Avengers were doing and got himself there with his remaining forces, we could have still had our Thanos with an incredible battle, and I just wish that this wasn't the case. And even more than that, with the character regression angle, they turned him into that same black and white villain that they were so desperately trying to avoid, that CGI villain that just wants to kill everyone and you really can't connect with, and he just assumes that, you know, a time jump 5 years into the future, he sees just one battlefield and assumes that his work with the stones and the snap didn't work, and now he's just going to kill everyone and wipe everyone out. And he has nothing to base that off of. I was like, what are we doing? What's going on? This is not the Thanos that we were given. But regardless, when you get through that scene and he starts going up against Tony, Cap, and Thor together, that was when I really just started to I was cheering for about the rest of the movie. I mean, it just, again, visually, it was incredible. Finally seeing Tony, Thor, and Cap all go up against him was incredible in those initial shots. And then when he finally does overpower Tony and Thor, who now is wielding Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, and he's about to kill Thor with Stormbreaker, revealing that enchantment on Mjolnir isn't actually there on Stormbreaker, and so anyone can hold Stormbreaker clearly, but then Mjolnir is lifted up and caught by Captain America, and they finally fulfill all those seeds that were planted in Age of Ultron, and all of us who for all these years knew Steve was worthy, and they did the thing, and it was great, man. It was really great. That was just everything I wanted out of a scene of Steve wielding Mjolnir against Thanos. That was just pure bliss. I mean, and then as he's still overpowered by Thanos and his shield is cracked in half, it was amazing watching Thanos and how he moved in combat, but it was more amazing when the greatest scene of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe began, and the true culmination of everything that has come before opened up with, quite literally, portals opening all behind Cap as Black Panther walks through with Shuri and Okoye now. Falcon flies through and more portals open up, and Doctor Strange and Spidey and the Guardians come through from Titan, the forces from Wakanda, and even that snow planet from Guardians 2, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and every character comes together for the final fight. Now, I knew that they had filmed this scene. I knew that they had shot a scene together, so I saw this coming, especially after Banner successfully snapped, and I was like, oh, they did it. They managed to do it. I knew it was coming. I kind of forgot because the Mjolnir sequence with Cap really threw me off and just had me scatterbrained, but when it finally happened, that was, for me, I think that had to be the greatest shot in cinema history. I really that was everything I dreamed of, everything I could have ever hoped for, and I think a lot of you would agree that was just truly amazing when they all run toward Thanos and his forces and the final battle commences, and you see Scott emerge as Giant Man one more time as he saves Rhodey and Rocket and Hulk from the debris that was crushing them. I mean, good Lord, man, good God, what a final battle. Just everything I was hoping for and more. I don't know what else to say. It was a dream. It was a dream. Everything in it, it was perfect. And there was just a payoff for every character in that moment, in that final battle. And it was glorious and it was amazing. But of course, guys, to close out this video, that brings us to the sacrifice, the death of Iron Man, and the conclusion of Steve Rogers' story as Captain America. Man, when he was about to snap his fingers, 2014 Thanos, and he successfully repels Captain Marvel with the Power Stone, and you see him about to do it as Tony charges him, gets knocked back, and Doctor Strange still holding back that entire water spout, that tidal wave from spewing in and wiping everyone out, and he holds up the one finger. I was like, I knew it was coming, man, but how well done was that? And he gets all the stones, he's on his knees, but then you cut to the greatest line delivery in Robert Downey Jr.'s career, and I am Iron Man, and he snaps his fingers, and it was perfect. That was exactly how I wanted Tony's story to end, and I and so many others even predicted as much with this edit that I did back last year after seeing Infinity War, and so many other pieces of fan art that predicted this same thing, and it was perfect, man. It really was. And Tony finally dying, surrounded by Rhodey and Peter and Pepper, as she told him, "It's okay. We're gonna be okay. You can rest now." I don't even know what else to say. The death of Tony Stark was perfect and exactly how I wanted his story to wrap up. He got what he wanted. He had 5 years of peace with Pepper and his daughter now, Morgan. It was not like Tony didn't get the happy ending. He had 5 years of a happy ending before this. And Tony Stark, as Howard Stark said, changed the world and saved the universe by preventing 2014 Thanos and his forces from wiping out everyone in the known universe. It was truly incredible, and considering how big of an impact Iron Man and Robert Downey Jr. has had on not just me, but the entire world with his embodiment of Tony Stark since 2008, it was a incredibly satisfying and moving ending. It's very hard to bring me to tears in a movie, but when you cut to the funeral scene and they're all there, and everything that came from Tony Stark and the original Iron Man movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they were all there united as they remembered Tony, that was perfect. It was all just everything that I was hoping for out of his conclusion. And then, you know, more cutting away from that as we, cut to Cap being the one, the errand boy, sending all of the Infinity Stones and dropping them back in those now different branch realities. I mean, they're never going to be able to really fix the changes they made in that 2012 reality, because Loki got away with the Tesseract and went off for his TV show, and Cap told 2012 Cap that Bucky was alive, so that timeline is kind of messed up regardless now, and also 2014 is never going to have Thanos anymore, so I guess they actually benefited from all of this as well. But also, I really wish we got to see a scene where Cap got to talk to Red Skull, because of course Cap must have gone back to Vormir to deliver the Soul Stone. What was that conversation like? You know, I wish we got to see that, but it is what it is. We can only imagine what it must have been like. And of course, I knew that Cap wasn't going to come back through that quantum tunnel, and that he was going to stay back in World War II in the 1940s with Peggy and have that final dance and live out the rest of his days and the rest of his life with Peggy. And he got the happy ending and the life he so deserved. And seeing Chris Evans aged up as he portrayed I assume an 80, 90-year-old Steve Rogers, man. Oh my God, I was not ready for that. And he passes the torch off to Sam with the shield. Oh my God, it was perfect. And as they played the same music from the end of the first Avenger, it was just the perfect way to wrap up the Infinity Saga. It was the perfect way to conclude the stories of the two titular characters in the form of Iron Man and Captain America. And I am so thankful that the third act of this movie, for the most part, was everything I could have ever hoped for. And that all of these characters and all of these actors really were able to deliver incredible performances in this final chapter of this phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is really closing a chapter on really the last 10 years of our lives, guys. And I don't care how dramatic that may come across, it to me is the truth. And we have, you know, again, all of them to thank. The cast, Kevin Feige, you know, the Russo brothers, Joss Whedon, Jon Favreau, and everyone who was responsible in crafting the first ever successful cinematic universe. Yeah, that's really all I have to say, I think, in this video. I talked about Avengers Endgame with my buddy Tate, Bisonhorn Games, over on the MGF podcast for 3 hours, talking about all of this in depth. I mean, it was a very comprehensive discussion, which I may or may not post over on the main channel here, so if you'd like to see that, I will drop a link. It'll be the first link down in the description below for the full in-depth discussion on Avengers Endgame, because of course, even in this 30-minute video almost, I could not fit everything and talk about everything, but like I said, I just tried to nail in and hit the major points, because man, I'm just so excited for this semester to be over, to get through this final essay that I have to work on and get started on what I hope will be some of the greatest figures I will ever produce to celebrate the culmination of everything that has come before. And so thank you guys for watching. Thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit to talk about the movie. And of course, there is so much more that I could have discussed and so much more that I want to say. Again, that's why I recommend check out the podcast if you're interested in having me and Tate on in the background. But on that note, guys, what better video than this one to close out with Avengers Assemble.